Irish Views on Death and Dying by Kirsten Dierberg. A survey was conducted in the Irish Republic where 982 participants responded. In this survey, one of the main questions posed was how comfortable do you, the participant, feel talking about death? On average, men and individuals ages 45 to 54 responded yes, they are comfortable talking about death, whereas women and individuals ages 35 and under are not comfortable talking about death. Conclusively, 57% of the Irish population represented by this survey think death is not discussed enough. 35% believe they have the right amount of discussion, and 6% believe there's too much discussion. With that being said, on a scale to completely comfortable to not at all comfortable, 4 out of 10 people said they were completely comfortable talking about the topic of death and dying. Now that it's been established how comfortable the participants say they were, the researchers put their words to the test. A series of questions were posed pertaining to the participants' readiness and their plans for their end-of-life stages. When asked where the participants would choose to die, 74% said they would likely to be taken care of in their home if they knew death was imminent. Older participants stated they would choose to be in hospice care when they were in their final life stages. There was a correlation found between the place of death desired and the participants' experience for caring for loved ones. For example, those who have previously taken care of, or witnessed a loved one going through their final days and saw how difficult and messy it can be, may realize they need more medical help from hospice for keeping clean and more help from doctors and nurses for pain management and what to do in an emergency situation rather than being alone at home. These participants also voted on what they would want at the end of their lives. The top 2 factors were to be surrounded by their loved ones and to be free from pain. Other factors listed were privacy and dignity, being in familiar surroundings, being in a calm and peaceful atmosphere, and having professional medical care. We see that some thought has been put into end-of-life stages, such as where the Irish participants would want to be and what they would like to have. However, there are several important things that have not been considered. Most participants do not have arrangements in place for when they die. This includes expressing their views on organ donation, deciding if they want to be buried or cremated, making a will, listing emergency contacts for who should be notified if something were to happen, appointing a power of attorney, funeral arrangements, and so on. These plans of action were documented less than 34% of the time. Organ donation was recorded at 34%, burial or cremation was 7%, drawing up a will was 30%, informing people of the location of where important documents were was 10%, emergency lists were 21%, prolonging life treatment was 4%, funeral arrangements were 4%, religious preferences were 3%, preference for care at the end of life was 4%, location of care near death was 5%, advance care directive was 6%, and appointing attorney was 7%. The previous slide of information from the survey conducted stated that 60% of Irish individuals or adults believed it important to discuss preferences for the end of their lives, but the results of this survey say otherwise. The Irish say that they are okay talking about death and dying, yet half of the participants say that it is not discussed enough, and results show in most areas wishes are not documented nearly enough. The Irish Hospice Foundation in 2007 said Irish people have little or no understanding of end-of-life treatment and care terminology. It is also said that 4 in 10 Irish residents say there is room for improvement concerning caring for dying or terminally ill people. The Irish believed that when a loved one died, they were moving on to a better place in the afterlife, which should be celebrated. They also believed in a death window. A death window was the window in the room or bedroom where the deceased lay. The window was to be left open without having anyone block the path to the window, allowing the spirit to leave. If anyone did block the window, it would bring them misfortune. After 2 hours of the window being open, the window was to be closed so the spirit could not re-enter. Certain customs and rituals have been held for centuries among the Irish, one of which being the wake house. The wake house is where the wake is held for the deceased. This usually occurs in the home of the deceased or in the home of a close relative. The deceased usually stay in the bedroom. The body was to be washed, clothed in all white. If it was male, he was to be freshly shaven. Rosary beads were to be wrapped around the deceased hands and a cross placed around the neck. Candles were lit at the end of the bed and stayed lit for as long as the deceased was in the house. Family members or close friends were supposed to take turns and stay with the deceased at all times. All of the clocks in the house were to be stopped at the time of the person's death, all mirrors covered or turned around, and all curtains closed. This was a sign of respect. Wakes were not meant to be solemn. People gathered to share memories and funny stories about the deceased. Food and drinks were always present. The men gathered to drink and women gathered to make food, drinks, and do the dishes. It was custom for friends and neighbors to stop by and drop off food, as there were many people in and out of the house. When guests came to the wake, a family member was supposed to meet them. Then the guest offers their condolences. The guest is taken to the room of the deceased where they silently pray for several minutes. Then they are taken to a different room to get the food and drinks. It is also custom for a rosary to be said twice a day while everyone is in the house to say the responses, and a special rosary is said around midnight right before everyone leaves. The wake is ended when the body is taken out of the house. This could take up to several days. The body is then taken to the local church for the funeral. The casket is carried by 6 males who are very close friends or family members to the deceased. The funeral ceremony usually lasts for 45 minutes, where the priest and loved ones speak loving words and accomplishments of the deceased. At the end of the funeral, on the way to the burial, if the hearse passes the deceased home, they stop and show respect. And these are my references.